basically in the for loop, the first for loop is performing one occurrence less, and the second for loop is performing one occurrence more.
Okay.
So I just, in the first for loop, I just provided less than or equal to. Earlier it was I less than R. I just changed it to I less than or equal to R.
Yeah.
And the second for loop, instead of starting from I equal to R, I started from I equal to R plus 1. That is the fixed.
Right. Okay. So Mani, I want you to try that yourself and find out the bug. What is the bug that you are facing? So once you do that, you will completely understand the concept of debugging and how to debug and all. In fact, let me just show you some small things that I haven't discussed about debugging yesterday, so that you will be able to do it more effectively. So yesterday, when we were actually debugging the code, let's say we have a breakpoint here. Breakpoint doesn't have to be in the main program. It can be in any of the method that gets called. So, and then it stops when the execution flow reaches that point of execution. And then when we are, say, for example, debugging this, and now if you remember, it is asking us to confirm perspective switch. What exactly is this perspective switch? Perspective switch is nothing but okay. Let's first say yes. So far we have been telling no, but let's say yes. Most of the times during debugging we will say yes. So when we say yes, then the view of Eclipse changes into something like this. Okay, our code looks somewhere in the middle. You're able to see my screen, right?
Right, we can see your screen.
So now the code will take occupy much less space now, and then we will have the console and all like anything, just like the others. So don't have to worry about that. So now what you will actually find interesting is the variables, and even you will find something called as threads section, but at this point of time you will not actually understand much in this, except for the current execution point, the top of the stack. The current execution point will be there, the line number 43. That is where we are. And before this method is called, we were actually executing another method. So if we click there, it will show where we were at this point of time. So how we came into this method. And now it says we got into this scramble of int, a method from get word method or line number 66. Now if we go there, now the execution has come from line number 6 to this line number 38, and then it went to line number 43. And then actually because now get word method called this scramble, then how will we got into the how did we get into the get word method? We got into the get word from line number 22 of main class. So this way you can actually go back and back and back as to how you got into that method at that particular point of time. Okay, so that is one thing that you can make sure that you actually execute. And now sometimes, say for example, you select this method, and then we have a specific a link called as drop to frame here. So the drop to frame will take our execution to that point again, through that method again, so that if you want to go back in the debugging, you can go. You cannot go line by line, you cannot go back line by line, but if you want to go to a beginning of a certain method on the call stack, you can select that method and it will go back. So it's like that method has never been called. Okay, so that is the kind of things that will actually happen. But if your words DB has some variable which got changed, and that changed value will not change back. Okay, and again, I was actually making you put your mouse over the variable to actually see the value in it, right? But instead, we will actually be able to see the variables and all in this random section. No, sorry, variables section. Okay. In that variable section will actually help you quickly generate the we quickly see all the variables that you have. So now if we go to the next level, now you see R value has a value of 1, and then there are two things that you have used: step over and step into. And then assume that we have come into a method that doesn't really bother us much. In that case, if we want to finish that that method's execution and come out of that, we can use something called step return. So step return will take us back to the it will execute all this, and it will until it reaches the return, and it executes the return, and also and it goes to the previous function. Again, if there are any breakpoints while executing that, it will still wait again over there. Now if you say step return, what happens is it will not go on to this. It will simply execute this all this method and go back to the method that called it. So now it went here. Now if we click, so what happens is sometimes if we know there is no issue in this code, we don't really have to click step out again and again and again. All you have to do is step return if you are in that method, and then step return will finish execution of that, and it will be completed. And that's how you can use the breakpoint. And now if you see, the variable section is showing us a different set of values. So we got a challenge, and let's say we enter this, and then we're waiting for the answer. We entered the answer, and then we stepped over. Now because we am not going into the start method because I'm stepping over, and then I'll be stopping, and then I'll be checking whether they are equal or not. Yes, they are equal, and then we want to continue. If I say yes, now if you see, whenever the variables are getting created, this is actually showing all the values. So when I entered a response piano word piano, it created a variable response. And remember that it will only show the variables that are in the current method. Okay, or in the current scope. So always remember, uh, if we had created any variable inside this if, it won't show those things because we have already come out of the if. Okay. So now, while continue has the value y because we entered y here, this way our loop continues. Okay. So now if you see, we are only seeing the variable word because in that variable word is created as a part of the arguments of the scramble method. Okay, now as we go forward, we will see other things. So now for word, it is showing a value, but for array, it is not showing a value. It is telling ID equals 66. This is most likely the address of that variable inside this heap memory. That really doesn't concern you, but when you click on that, it will most probably showing you the value whatever is supposed to be there in that array, like each individual characters. You can expand these variables and see them depending upon the type of the class. You should be able to have different kinds of uh, structures. So if you want to see these class variables, what are the values in these class variables, you can go to this and see the class variables. Okay, so these are the variables. Now imagine sometimes we may want to do this how want to find out what is the value of some custom expression, like how what will be if we want to directly see array of 0 directly. We cannot see that unless we expand this. Or if we want to find out what will be the uh, s- array of 1 plus array of 2, we have to do it manually unless we do something else. See, there is this variables window, and then if we go to window, show perspective, sorry, show view. Views are the smaller sections. This is a view, this variables is a view, and this breakpoints is another view, this debug is another view. So, and this entire source code thing is another view. So this way each of these are sources, and the combination of different views is a perspective. So the debug perspective, whatever is showing here, is a combination of debug view, breakpoints view, variables view, and console view, editor view, etc. And now if you go to Java perspective by clicking on Java here, and then we'll be seeing a different set of, we'll be seeing project explorer, source, console. We won't be seeing variables and debug, variable breakpoints, etc, etc. So the perspectives in Eclipse are like a quick configuration changes. Okay, if we want to see a different view in Java also, we can see. We go to show view and say variables. Okay, that will be visible. But it's like, okay, now when we want to, when we don't need this, we have to close all these things more manually. So instead what we do, we have a collective group, and when we simply go there, the Eclipse view will be switched to that. Okay, now what I'm about to tell now is we need some other thing called as expressions. Now here we can actually add expressions. So which method are we in? We are in method this word. Now let's see if we want to find out if word is starting with P. We want to check that expression. Now if you see it is returned into false, so we can write any custom expressions and watch them. Here in the variables, only the variables for create are coming up, and then here we are actually typing custom expressions. Okay, let's say if challenges dot length is equals to answers dot length. Now true. Okay, imagine the challenges has one more element. Okay, then that won't be actually true. Okay, this way we can write any custom expression and do that. Okay, we can even copy this custom expression something like this and paste it over here to be able to test that. So this way we can actually see more clearly as to what is happening and what is not happening, etc. Now it says error during evaluation. Why? I cannot be resolved, because I can only be resolved in this scope. Okay, because we are not in that, instead we are over here, we are not actually seeing it. Now arrays.sort is there. The array has IAINOP. Okay, it is already sorted, it seems. So it's not going to sort again. But in fact, if we do that, because in the last section it got sorted, like last time when we were entering. And now the random. We can see if we want to check if the uh, r is less than array.length. We can check that. Okay, so this is how we can actually use Eclipse to actually simplify our debugging and all. Okay, and also this breakpoint section will show us all the breakpoints that it has. There are a lot of things that you can do using the breakpoint section, but at this point of time I'm not going into the details of those. There are some conditional breakpoints we can set, wherein we can find out after, say for example, you don't want to at this breakpoint until we hit, say for example, until after 10 times, then only we want to stop it here, because sometimes our code may take too long to come to a specific scenario to reproduce a specific issue. In those cases, what we do, we let it hit, say for example, 100 times. What if it comes in thousandth iteration? we don't want to press F8, F8, F8 for 1,000 times, right? So what we do, we enable this hit count, and then when we enable this, say for example, we give hit count as, say for example, 3, it stops after 3 times the breakpoint has been hit. Okay, that way, then also we can do conditional. Lots of things we can do. We don't have to. Uh, uh, I am not going to explain you everything, but I want you to explore that on your own whenever your need strikes. Okay, so that's about enough about debugging. So let's go ahead and discuss some more topics that I had to discuss today. Kishore, were you able to solve the issue?
No, but I did not get time. I mean, I was busy in production issue that got resolved today only.
Okay.
I will do it.
Okay, I actually have sent you an invite of what is that? The admodo.com. Have you got any email in that respect?
Let me check once. No, but I did not get anything.
Okay, so let me do this. Okay, I sent you a link. Just join there, join that group, and you will be able to see a list of all the assignments that we have. So whenever you get time, try to solve them and click the turn in and upload your answer over there. That way, you will keep a track of what are all the assignments you have finished and what you are yet to finish, and also the I'll be posting the video links as well over there so that you can see them as a quick reference instead of trying to search in your emails and all. Okay, so that's what I want to do from now on, so that because everyone are solving a different set of problems, so some are solving all, some are not. So it will keep track. It will help you as well, instead of me asking which you have solved and all.
Yeah, did you
So
send it? I did not get still the
I,
mail.
I just sent you in the chat in the GoToMeeting.
Oh, in the chat.
Actually, I sent you email itself for your kishore.karda, but I sent you now also in chat.
Okay, okay. Let me check. Okay, I have to click on this one.
Yes, yes. And then once you sign up, then you will be able to see what all. So far, I've only posted the scramble assignment. I'll be posting the other assignments as well. So make sure you do and turn in them so that I know what all you have done and you yourself will know what all you have done and where you are lagging. Okay. Uh, so you don't have to look into each exercise sections of each presentation and try to find out what are the issues. So that's it. Let's go ahead for the actual today's session that I wanted to target. Game, yes. Piano, yes. And game, yes. Game. And now, do you see the problem with using our approach of, say, for example, generating one random number and then you based on that trying to replicate a different the different thing. If you see, when we are actually generating a random number too quickly, it is actually generating the same kind of number, EAGM. EAGM. So what we are actually getting is almost the same kind of things if we are doing these things quickly. Uh, Piano, yes. Computer, yes. Phonia. So now we got it differently. Okay, previously when we got the game itself, now if you see AAGM we got. EAGM we got, and then AEGM we got. So we got similar kinds of things. There is a specific pattern as to how these things are getting scrambled. So what I want you to do is I want you to actually write a better scramble method that actually doesn't actually return the same scramble every time. Okay, here we are only generating one random number, so there is only one point upon which we are just rotating the characters. Okay, and I don't want to do like that. Okay, I want you to scramble it truly randomly. Okay, so every time every character has to go into a different place based on a random number that you generate. Okay, so that is how you will have to go for. Now, to begin with our subsequent sessions, we have left yesterday when we have actually designed the words DB, and the words in that words DB we have actually written a check method. And another exercise I actually asked you to think about is how can you actually keep a single word like single array instead of trying to store it using multiple arrays, yet find out when the user is giving a correct answer. Okay, so that one is something that you will have to uh, think about and try to solve it on your own. So for now, I'm just keeping these things like this, and let's go ahead and continue with the next sections. So uh, if you see, we are creating different kinds of classes in the different kinds of methods in the classes, right? And these classes gets executed whenever they are called. Now when you say private void scramble, and it gets executed once, and then if you say something else, it gets executed another time. But there is a very special type of method that gets executed when we actually try to create that object by using this new keyword. Okay, that is called as constructor. So constructors are methods, and their name of the constructor will be same as the name of the class. So, and there won't be any return type, and they are generally used for initialization of a class. Okay, so here we are actually, say for example, uh, we are executing some piece of code when we are actually initializing the class. So in that case, what we can actually do is we can actually let constructor take care of that particular code. That way, every time a specific, if you want to make sure that a specific code gets executed every time method is called, we can actually do that, write that code in the constructor itself. Okay, so now let's say it can be actually used to set an initial state, and the constructor also as a method, so it can take more than zero or more parameters. So if you don't give any parameters, that is called as default constructor. Okay, now let's say in the words db class. Okay, in the words db class, let's say that let's say there are only four, so we are writing over here. What if there are 1,000? What if you don't want to create write the code for all the 1,000 over here? So for that, what you can also imagine a scenario wherein this challenges every time we run the game. Yesterday, when we were discussing, Srinivas has mentioned we are hard coding these scrambled words. Instead, what we can do is we can actually scramble these words in a random order, and then put those words in here so that they won't be actually uh, they won't be actually just giving the same words every time we run the game. Okay, so if you want to write that code, how do we do that? One way that you can do is you can write a method, say for example, that doesn't do anything. It simply scrambles. So now let's say we are actually trying to initialize all these variables in this scramble method. So now answers of 0 is game, piano, computer, hard. Now what we are going to do is for int I equals to 0, I less than answers dot length I plus plus challenges of I equals to scramble the word, say for examples, answers of I. Now what this does, so we don't really have to set it over here like this. Now answers challenges equals to new string of 4. Now what we are doing over here, instead of setting these values over here, we are actually calling the scramble method, wherein that itself is taking care of the scrambling the words. So the problem with writing like this is, the advantage of writing like this is, we don't, if we want to write some logic, we cannot put that in here. We cannot put logic in here. So if we want to write that, write some logic to initialize these values, we can do that. Okay, so when you do words db, what you can do is you can call words.scramble method, and this will actually ensure that we scramble all the things before we actually use them. The problem with this approach is that users have to remember that they have to use this words.scramble method. Okay. Instead, what we can actually do is, okay, so if we use words.scramble, it works. Okay, it perfectly works. So it will, when we once we create this wordsdb object, we can actually call the scramble method. Therein, we can actually run this. Now, if you see, we got a different word. Okay, so now solved it, yes, and then I got a different word. So now if you see, the word tribute doesn't have any default values for challenges, still we are getting a different thing. Now if we run it again, now we got a different sets of values. Okay, now we are getting different set of value for the same word, because every time we are calling get word, we are scrambling that word. So that's why we are actually getting a different word here. But previously in the initial set, we were not randomizing that. So every time we used to get the same word for the first time, and then from second time onwards we used to get a different word. Now that problem won't be there. But the problem with this approach is user have to remember to call this scramble method. If you forgot to call this scramble method, what happens? We'll get a null pointer exception saying, because the array s doesn't have any values at all. So to actually solve this problem, we can actually use the constructors. So constructors are also just like any other methods. So in the changes for them is will be like this. There won't be any return type, and the method name will be same as the class name. And now what happens is, this is called as a constructor. A constructor doesn't actually have to be say like doesn't have to return any value, and all the code that we have written over here gets executed when we are actually calling this new words db. So what you are actually calling over here, the words db, is you are doing nothing but you are simply calling this constructor. Well, whatever you are writing over here is actually calling a specific constructor. Okay. Imagine there is a constructor that is, say for example, there is difficulty level private boolean, uh, say for example, okay, let's say when we are creating this words DB, we only want to ensure that user gets hard words, not like simple words like HARD hard or GME game. So in that case, what we can actually do is we can actually change whatever words that go in here, right? For that, what we can actually do is we can create another constructor boolean tough. So now here we'll use the same things, but here all the words that we use will be difficult, like say for example abbreviation, and then uh, what are all some of the different difficult words, conglomeration, partnership. So now let's say when the user actually wants to have a tough game, what we can actually do is we created a variable and it actually creates a different set of variables, a different set of values for this. It will initialize these variables with a different set of values. So that is what constructor does. So constructor most of the times it executes some code, but most of them that code will actually initialize some state, initial state. Now if we call the tough, sorry, true over here, so what actually happens is this gets called. In fact, we are not actually using the uh, tough variable, but because we are passing the parameter, this gets called. Now if we want to use the parameter, say for example if tough, now what this does, this will simply be executing this specific this will simply be executing if the user has passed tough. Now imagine user has passed false here. In that case, we have to treat it like user has not given the tough tough. Okay, so he doesn't want tough. So what we will do is we will write an else clause over here. Now instead of copy pasting this code here, what we can do is something like this. This it says constructor call must be a first one. Why? It doesn't happen. Okay, let's do one thing. Let's copy this into simple init, another method called as public void simple init. Let's put it over here. And then when the user has called it without any constructor, we can actually call that simple init method. This will actually initialize it with the simple values. And now what we can actually do is we can actually call the simple init method. We should be actually able to call the other constructor directly without providing this method. But some things I might have changed in Java 8, so I'm not able to get that one. I'll look it up and find that out about how to approach that one. But so now what this does is I'm not actually repeating the code of simple init. Instead, I'm actually calling that simple init over here. So now in case if the user passes say false here, this will be treated as if the user has not passed this, because in that else block we are actually calling the simple init. So now if I say true, all the words I should be getting are the tough ones. Now if you see, we got the tough word. So now what constructor has done is it has created it has initialized the state depending upon some condition. Okay, so how we actually have to find out whether we have to create constructor with parameters or not, it depends. Okay, let's say you want to decide how much long the character should be. Okay, let's say you only want to give, say for example, the words of say the words wherein the number of letters are 6 only. If you want to have that condition, you can create another constructor, okay, that actually takes an integer and max length. And now here you have to write some logic wherein you initialize these answers 0 1 2 3 based on the sizes. Okay, so if length is double equals to 3, you have to give all 3-letter words can, put, and do this. And this for actually can go to outside. So this way we don't have to copy paste this for block every time. Okay, so now else if length is double equals to 4, we can actually give answers instead of the simple unit, we can give something like this, um, don't rant. So this way we can initialize all these things. So now this way you will have to do, but anyways, so here we are initializing the values manually, right? So that's why we are actually doing all these things. Imagine tomorrow you have, say for example, thousand, you want to do thousands of words, you cannot write code all code like this. In that case, we actually use loops to actually uh, generate the words with more intelligence and all. We will see all those examples when we are actually coming to a concept called as collections. Okay, which I'll start once we finish some introduction, finished about this classes and all. But now you got right how we can actually make use of constructor, and then now if we say for example if we give 4, it will be giving us all the 4-letter words, that, that, and then and now, this works as long as we give 3 and 4. If we give anything more than 5, this code doesn't actually get executed, right? So we have to have a better logic. Instead of doing this for every single length of character, we have to find a better logic, which we will do anyways in the later point, later stage. Okay. So that's about the constructors. So we can create constructors that take different sets of initial values, and we got 68. Why did we get it? Because we have not created the answers and challenges. So now we will have to create them. Now we will not be getting that error. Now if you see, we got 4-letter words. Okay, this is how we can actually improvise our words DB class by creating words DB and giving the lengths and all. Okay, this for example, we can adjust this based on the user's level. Okay, how much person's current points are. But anyways, we have not gone to that point. We will go to that immediately once we have covered some more topics. Now I've removed that. I've only kept this words DB and all, and now I cannot pass the integer variable because there is no constructor that is expecting an integer variable. Now I've removed it, and there is it. Now it will be a simple game for the user, so we don't have to worry about how many words are and all. All we have to do is just call that specific constructor. Okay. Any questions for you guys? Okay, I imagine there are no questions. So let me go to a next topic. So now, so far, I've been using some keywords without actually explaining you what they actually mean. They are public, okay, and also the private, etc., which I haven't really explained to you, and even the public is there for classes also, so which I haven't explained that either. So now we will come to that topic of what is public and private and default and everything. Okay, now for either classes or not exactly classes, but we can also give some of these to classes. For the variables or methods and all, we can give some access modifiers. Okay, I think I have already introduced this topic to you. So what when we say public, the all the methods that are marked as public or even the variables that are marked as public, they will be accessed outside of that current class. Okay, and if you mark that particular variables as private, they won't be accessible outside that class. Okay, so only that class can that class and that class methods can access the those variables and methods. There is another kind of modifier that is default, which is like you don't give any specific access modifier. Okay, so when you say default, that particular variable or method or class will be accessible inside within the same package. Okay, and then protected again, let's park it aside now. We will look at the protected keyword shortly, because you will have to understand a concept called as inheritance for you to be able to actually understand the protected keyword. Okay, so now let's see. I think I've already shown you some examples already. So now if you see in the words DB, there these variables are private. Okay, so that is the reason why you are unable to access that words dot challenge or words dot answers. Okay, if they are public, you will be able to access them. Along with the same is the case with methods, even constructors also. Imagine this is a private constructor. So what happens? User cannot call this constructor, so he will have to either call the other constructor that are accessible or call some other static method. Okay, static method also static method. When I say static methods are some things that we can actually call without having to create a new object of that method. So now let's say this is private, but for now let's not worry about making this private. And that default means a, say for example, you can have no access modifier at all, which is nothing but a default. Okay, now with default you can access in other classes But if the class where you are accessing is in a different package, now if you see the data words db is in data package and main class is in main package, so you will not be able to access this main word. Imagine we have created another class over here, and we imagine we created a new object of words db, and if we say dot, now we should be able to access the get word method. Okay, why? Because this is a default constructor, and even this small icon should make things clear for you, like what they are and all. Okay, this means default. And say for example, or the hash code, notify, ignore those things. If you say check is the green dot, right? Which means the check is actually a public method, and this indicates a internal I'm sorry the default method, and there can be some private ones. If we create a private one, there will be. So there will be let's for example, let's make it private. If we make this private, we will not be able to access them in main, and we will not be able to access them in the test default. Okay, now now if you see, we will not be able to see that at all in this IntelliSense. Okay, so that is the access modifier. So you can also give access modifiers to the classes. Words DB, let's make it public again. Now, if we say, for example, we don't actually we cannot give private for classes because then that actually loses the purpose of this creating a class, right? Because no one can actually use this words DB. Instead, what we can actually do is, if we want to create a private class, we can actually create more than one class in a Java file. Say, for example, private class, another class. Okay, here another class, again it says it is a private variable. Okay, only public, abstract, and final are permitted. So now a class that is separated out, that is kept created outside of another class, is cannot be accessed. Now I earlier told that we can create inner classes, like classes inside classes. Now if we say create a class here, now we can make this private. Okay, because why it doesn't allow? When we make this private, this will be accessible inside this class words db. Okay, so at least there is some place where we can access this class and the code inside this class. If we make a private class outside, we will not be able to use that anywhere at all. So obviously there won't be any point of actually access creating such class. That's why they actually restricted from us to create any private methods. Okay, so now we can actually give a default modifier. That means we need not give any modifier at all. But again, the same rules apply. We cannot create an object of words db in this main method, because that's in a different package. Whereas we can create a new words db in the test default. The reason being, both of these are in the same method, and even if you see, there is an icon over here. This shows that this class is somewhat default. Okay, it can be accessed only through some. So now that is what happens if you don't give a public keyword over here. Okay, now when you say public, it can be accessed either in main method or in default package. So that's the concept of creating a private method. So why we want to create some private methods? Because sometimes some logic doesn't have to be known by others. Okay, let's say there is chef. Okay, that chef has a function called as cook. When restaurant or you order something to cook, you really don't care about how he cooks it, right? Of course you may be interested to know how he cooks, but the chef may not be interested to share how he does it. So in that case, what you do, you make that particular method a private method, so you cannot call that directly. All you do is you call the restaurant and ask for some order, and the restaurant will take care of calling the chef and getting it done. Whether it does it that way or whether it again orders it from some other restaurant, you don't really have to worry about how a restaurant does this. So in those cases, in that kind of logics, the where some mechanism is not exposed to you, those methods are private. You cannot directly call that a subsequent restaurant, or where that this first restaurant is calling and getting the food from. So you cannot directly call that one. So that is what is that is when we generally use private, when we don't want others to see, not see the code. They can see the code. Okay, if we are giving the class, they are able to see the code, but what they cannot do is they cannot call those methods directly. Okay, why you want to do that? Because there is some reason, like say for example, you don't want that method to be called unless some other method to is called. So in that case, what you do, you make that conditional method a private method and call that inside your own method whenever you need it. Okay, and in fact the words db class, we made almost all of the methods public. In fact, we don't have to. Okay, we did make this scramble method private because we don't want to call this scramble directly out of this in this main method. So that's why we have actually done it that way. Okay, so now what we are actually doing is this. Let's remove this, delete this test default, and even this scramble is also private. Okay, why did we make these scrambles private for the users? Is because we want other classes not to worry about calling this scramble method. That is why when we say for example words dot scramble, we won't find it. Why? User doesn't have to know it. User doesn't have to scramble a word. The users, all that responsibility has to be taken care by this words db itself. Okay, so the whatever object that we created of words db, that should take care of this scrambling whenever we are trying to get a word. Okay, so this is how you can actually ensure that you do whatever you actually need. Okay, so that's about the access modifiers. Okay, and then there are other kinds of things. Static, the static keyword also you have been seeing from the day one. Okay, every method has a static keyword. Okay, not every method, every main method has a static keyword. So the static keyword means you can call that particular method without actually having to create the object of that method. So now imagine we have this stopwatch, and that stopwatch has we have to call the start. If we want to call the start and stop, we have to create the object of the stopwatch, right? Let's say uh, I'm just thinking about an example that I can give. Okay, okay. Let's say we want to use this scramble method outside of the main method. Okay, outside of this words db. So to make that, what we do, we make it a public. Now let's say we want to use this scramble for some other odd reason. Okay, we don't really want to have this entire game. Instead, we want to give some of our own word. Say for example, user may want to give his own word and then he wants to scramble that word and see the output. So in that case, let's create a method class custom scrolling and sorry, custom scrambling, and let's create a main method and finish. And now let's imagine we want to just scramble this any given word that we give, not the words that we have in this array. Okay, not the words that are in this array. Now for that, so far, based on how you have been doing so far, you are doing something like this: words db, words or w or whatever you may want. And then now, because we made that public, w dot scramble, and we can give a scrambling, give a correct word. Say we give mouse, and now let's say sys out. Now if we run this program, what happens? This the word mouse gets scrambled. Okay, and now if we give some, say for example, table, that gets scrambled. So and if we run the program, every time slightly different functionality word. Okay, now now for this kind of situation, we don't really have to initialize this words db with some words, right? We don't really have to put all these words and don't have to execute in all these things. For this requirement, it's enough if we directly call this scramble word. But based on the logic that we have written so far, we cannot do it that way. So what can we do? What we can do is, we can actually make this scramble a static method. So now we don't really have to create an object of this, and we don't have to call the constructor, but instead we'll directly call the scramble method by using the class name itself. Here in this case, we won't actually be having any of these answers or challenges variables initialized. Okay, now we can directly call that scramble method. That's it. So so in the cases where you don't have to create an object for the purposes that you have, if you may want to call a method directly, in that case that method has to be a static method and public method, then only you can call those things. And if you have that kind of public static method, so you can use class name dot that particular method. Okay, and if you make a certain method a static method, you cannot call other methods. Like say for example, you cannot call get word in this scramble. Okay, because this is static. This exists even without actually creating an object of this. But this get word only exists when you actually create an object of this particular uh, word string, right? So that way, the static will actually provide us to call specific methods without creating objects. Okay, it all depends on your requirement. If you have a requirement where you don't have to create the entire method and you want to call some specific functionality, then you can actually use this kind of setup. Okay, so that's about the static keyword. Okay, now I want you to uh, let's actually create a small thing called as let's create a new package. In this, I'm creating a class called as game class. And now if you see, the main program itself is doing a lot of work over here. Okay, which we really don't want, because tomorrow if we want to have a different set of different flavor for game, we want to change the logic of the main. So we may screw up some things. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to create a class, and then here I'm going to create public void start method. Now, what I'll do is, I don't care about repeating that game again and again to be inside this main method, but instead, when the user wanted to access, do some answer, what I want to do is, I actually want to move this code into this game method. Now, so the reason why I'm doing is because the main entry point doesn't really have to actually ask the user to give that your word and all. Now tomorrow we want to play a different flavor of game where of this scrambled game where there will be two users, where one user will be giving input giving a word to other user, and another user will be giving another word to the first user will be giving word to second user, and second user will be giving word to the first user. In that case, again we have to write that logic over here itself. So instead of doing like that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a method called as game, and this game method I will actually write a method start, wherein I'll actually make sure that I write that logic. Okay, so tomorrow if I want to create a different set of game, I'll do that. How I'll we'll see when we come there. So first we have to create the words db, and then we can create a stopwatch. That's it. So now what I'll do is game and equals to new game, game dot start. And because now, if you see, what I've actually done is the main entry point is taking care of the repetition of the game. If the user wants to play the game, if they wants to continue or not, he will do that. But the actual logic of performing a game or playing a game or giving the user challenges and all doesn't really have to be in this main class itself. So what I did is I moved that entire logic into the game class start method. Okay, there is no one single correct way to do these things. You can do things any way you want, but just think, sometimes we may really not need to do it that way. And we don't have to put all the code in a single method. In fact, that's a wrong way of doing things. So here we are not using this words challenges anymore. So the main method doesn't really care about words db, stopwatch, or anything at all. Okay, all it cares about is letting the user play a game, and then if he wants to still play a game, again give him some game. So this way mains method's responsibility is clear. It lets you play a game. Okay, which game, what exactly has to be played in that game is not the responsibility of the main method. It's the responsibility of the game method, which is inside the games package. Okay, so that is how we can actually modelize the code, whatever that we have. Okay, now coming to the next point, which is the actually uh, exercises. Okay, what I want you to do is I want you to actually create a game class for yourself, wherein the here now if you see, we are calling this game method, okay, a game constructor, but we have not defined that game constructor over here anywhere. Okay, why? Because the default constructor is not mandatory. Okay, if there is no parameters and if there is no special logic to be executed, we don't have to write that code. That will be by default created by Java when it gets compiled. So what I wanted to do is I want you to create a I wanted to create a game class wherein it takes the input of a user in a username as the input, and then when the game is getting played, it has to actually print hooray. Say for example, if I created this game by calling that constructor, say for example, like this, then it should say hooray Buddha, you solved it in so and so seconds, and then sorry, wrong answer Buddha, if I gave a wrong answer. So that is how I want you to create a constructor, and that actually stores the name for itself and uses the name inside the start method. Okay, that's one exercise that you are supposed to do. And the other exercise is, I want you to create another class called as user class. It should contain fields name and points. Okay, so and here we are actually using the name only, right? And that name has to be used from the user class. Okay, so that name you do, while when creating the game class, create another constructor that actually takes a user object as an input, and name should be used from that user object. So these are the two things that I want you to do for exercise today. Okay. So I'll be putting these two exercises over here in this Edmodo. So I want you to make sure that you do those exercises and ensure that you finish those exercises. And once you're done, you will have to click turn in. I may have turned in, but you will have turn in, because once you do that, I will know that you have done that. And you will also know after, say, for example, 30 or odd exercise after 10 classes, you will know which ones you have done, which ones you have not done, so that you can go back and on. Okay. So do you guys have any questions for today's class?
No, Buddha.
Okay. Uh, so, Mani, do you have any questions? Have you understood? Yesterday you were having some trouble picking up, right? So, are you able to understand today, or you still have some doubts about yesterday or today?
I'll just look into the video 1 second and I'll call you and ask if I have some notes.
Okay. Okay. Fine then. Meet you tomorrow, guys. Try to solve these problems, and you should be able to do that, uh, because the more and more complex topics we introduce, the tougher and tougher it gets if you don't finish your assignment. So make sure you do that. That is very critical for you to be able to understand the advanced concepts. Okay, that's it for today, guys. So please be please try to solve these problems with me. And money quota. So Kishore, so please join that Edmodo group and uh, try to follow
Mm.
what the Srinivas or Mani are doing.
Okay,
Okay.
okay, Buddha.
Yeah.
So Srinivas and Mani already joined there.
Yes, yes, they did.
Okay, fine.
Okay. Okay then. Bye. Take care.
Yeah, bye, Buddha.
No.